guys, welcome to my 100 books a year challenge. Today I'll tell you all about my trials and tribulations of reading 100 books in a single year. I'll give you some tips on how to do that and stay sane. And if your goal is to read 100 books this year, then join me in my 2021 book challenge and let's get started. A little bit of a background story. So this is actually my third time reading 100 books in a single year. The first time I did it, I was 16. And the other times, there were 80, 85 books in my list, so I was pretty close. 2020 brought a lot of uncertainty and chaos into my life, as well as probably yours. The main change that happened is that I had to take a year off from grad school. And since May 2020, a chunk of free time was available to me daily. So basically I had 8 months to try to implement a new habit into my routine, or a well-forgotten one. At that time, I was mostly reading whatever was available to me at home, and then one day I discovered this teeny tiny notebook that I brought with me from Russia 5 years ago when I moved to this country. And this is a collection of all the books that I read since I was 12. And I discovered that at least 2 times I read 100 books in a single year. Please don't judge my taste in choosing this cover. I was 11 or 12 back then, so yeah, since then I was writing down every single book that I read. Here comes my tip number 1. Looking through this made me super nostalgic, and I decided to challenge myself to read 100 books in a single year again. Number 100 is not something I saw on Facebook or YouTube. No YouTube or Facebook back then. I just liked the number, I guess. It seemed realistic, doable. I believed I could do that. Of course, back then I had much more free time, and reading a lot was actually required at high school and then later at the university where I was studying journalism and art criticism. I stopped reading a lot exactly 5 years ago when I moved to LA. I was mostly surviving in a foreign country with no advisors or connections back then, so no time for books. And then my film school started, and people who went through film school know how hectic it gets there, so no time for books again. I was still reading around 25 to 30 books a year, but of course, I was a total failure in my own eyes, I who used to read at least 60, 70 books a year. And so last year, I decided to start a new notebook where I would recover in my memory and write down all the books that I read in the previous 2 years, at least the ones that really stuck with me, and then of course the books from 2020. As you see, my taste in covers didn't improve much, so yeah. Writing down the books you read, and even if you can with some notes or scores like I did, is the best advice I can give you. Just pumps up your enthusiasm magically. In both of these I have my scores, pluses and minuses. 3 pluses means that the book was a revelation, and a minus means that it was a total waste of time. And I don't see many minuses actually. Oh, we have Nietzsche with a minus. Imagine a 13-year-old judging Nietzsche for wasting her precious time. I must say I'm much more tolerant towards Nietzsche right now. My next tip is read large books first or last. So at first, in May 2020, when I decided to take up this challenge and read 100 books, I had a lot of enthusiasm. I gathered all the books that were available to me, mostly in English, but some in Russian and Armenian. First month was perfect. I read 10 to 12 books very fast. I was very engaged, very thirsty. And then I got to this one. This is Kate Chopin's short stories. It's actually a collection of short stories, essays, and 2 of her novels, At Fault and The Awakening. Of course, I counted the novels separately because I was already losing my patience. But this took me a month to read. I loved some of the short stories, and I would definitely consider making a video about Kate Chopin's short stories. But oh my god, how much energy I spent on this book. My enthusiasm was wasted. I also realized how much easier it is to read a large volume novel versus hundreds of short stories. So this book was actually my low point. I thought I was gonna give up. I didn't regret reading it, of course, but I did question my ability to finish what I started. But then, fortunately, I picked up another book, which was Henry James's Washington Square, a medium-sized novel, 200 50 something pages. I somehow missed this book when I was supposed to read it at school, but now I read it in like 6-7 hours, and that's when I realized that I still got some fuel in my tank. The next month I read 8 to 10 books, so I was on top of the game again. It's important to combine easygoing, even dirty pleasure books, like Washington Square was a totally dirty pleasure book for me, with the more complex ones, I guess. The problem with Kate Chopin's short stories was that she used a lot of local slang that I was not familiar with, and especially as a former international student with English as my third language, I was reading them extra slow. So it took me more time to finish the short stories than it would normally take me to finish a book. If you want to start this challenge, make sure that you have that 1 month that you can devote to extra large volume or difficult books. So I would rather read them in the beginning of the year when you still have a lot of enthusiasm, or by the end of the challenge where you're at a lower risk of dropping. Tip number 3, choose the books that sparkle your interest. In 5 years of browsing through different LA County or Los Angeles libraries, I picked up a lot of orphan books that no one wanted, and I created my library of orphans. Among them, there are a lot of ancient literature classics. One of them was 800 pages biography of Marie Antoinette by Andre Fraser that I read in like 5 days. Then other historical books. All of these titles or annotations at some point sparkled my interest. The system sometimes fails me. I picked up a lot of celery juice books, that's how I call them. Remember, there was a book that claimed that if you drink celery juice every morning, all your health and life problems will be solved. Or The Secret, where you just really have to wish something and it will come to you by itself. These inspirational books I call celery juice books because they give just one answer to all the questions of your life. Some people get a lot from them. I personally don't, and I think that's okay. If I find something that is really inspirational for me, I would definitely recommend it. If you want real motivation for being happy and living the fullest life, read Prince Myshkin's monologues from Dostoevsky's The Idiot. Just don't finish the novel, please. So if you want to take up this challenge, make sure that you choose the books that are not necessarily in your comfort zone, but at least are of some interest to you. My next tip is incorporate reading into your daily routine. First of all, do not be afraid to include audiobooks, school books, or even scripts into your list. I have at least 4 audiobooks in this list, I believe. So yes, including audiobooks is allowed. You actually spend more time listening to an audiobook, and if you're attentive enough, you get as much information from it as when you physically read it. Where there's a will, there's a way. I truly believe that. And trust me, it's not like I've been reading all year long. I was also working on my writings, studying, meeting people, mostly via Zoom, doing thousands of chores, watching movies, shows, and of course spending time with my husband. What I was trying not to do is to waste time. If I cooked or washed the dishes, I would listen to an audiobook. Between the loads of laundry, I would set a timer on those 36 minutes of the cycle and read. The only time I can't really read or listen to an audiobook is while running in the morning. I prefer to listen to music. Always bring your book or your electronic book to wherever you go, especially if it's a doctor's office visit or something like that. Have it in your car, in your purse, in your baby stroller. You never know when the fate will be so generous to grant you those precious moments to read. My next advice is be a beginner. It's okay to start with the books that are familiar to you or everyone is talking about or you think you're gonna like. Soon you'll develop your own taste for a certain niche. Another very important thing is do not approach any book with a prejudice or an assumption. Do not open Maupassant trying to find Jane Austen there or read Tolkien trying to find Bradbury there. Any book, and I truly believe that, even celery juice books can open a whole new world for you. Approach each one of them with an open, clear mind, and you will be surprised at how much they will enrich your life. Reading makes you smarter. If books don't make you smarter, nothing will. My tip number 6 is highlight, highlight, and highlight. I never start a book without my friend, a pencil. I don't use pens in the books, I think it looks nasty, but pencils, yes. Then if I like the book, I will go back to those lines that I highlighted and read them and try to understand what was on my mind back then. I always find it easier to remember the general message of the book, the plot lines, and the characters if I highlight the lines that really stuck with me or taught me something new about the author or the book. If I really like the book, I would go back to it in a year or two, and I will go back to those lines and meditate on why I highlighted them, what was on my mind back then. It's a really enriching experience, like reading your diary from 5 or 20 years ago. So use a pencil. If you can, take notes. I also know electronic books like Nooks and Kindles give you an option to highlight, which is great. Use it. I also love getting those old library books with someone else's notes in it. Go through them and try to understand their thought process. It's like reading someone else's diary, which is even cooler. My tip number 7 is find your biggest motivation. My biggest motivation was always curiosity. I love learning about the hidden depths of a human nature. I love studying the way this world works, anything starting with history, economics, to spirituality. There has to be something that you would be thrilled to learn about. Something that will help you in your career or just benefit you as a human being. The good news is there are so many books out there for each taste. Just find your area of curiosity. Then pick another one and see if you like it more. Sounds cliche, but don't be afraid to experiment with literature. Don't get stuck with one genre like people tend to do with the movies. Another huge motivation for me is advancing in my language skills. I will definitely talk about it a little more in my next video, but when I started to read a lot at the age of 12 back in Russia, not only my vocabulary improved, my memory improved, but my ability to think critically and analyze what I hear and read and analyze my own actions and better understand people around me. And I was not even reading hardcore psychological literature, just European and Russian classics, which tells you actually how much talent and effort and life experience was put into writing those books. Also, whether you want it or not, but when you start reading a lot, your taste changes in arts, in people, even in your cuisine preferences. That happened to me. I don't know if it happens to everyone, but it might happen to you. My next tip is accomplish something before taking a break. Delay your daily goal and you neglect it. Accomplishing something before taking a break is very important, like finishing that everlasting chapter or part of the book. Then go stretch, eat, browse through Instagram, do whatever your heart desires, but just make sure to come back and accomplish your daily goal. It's okay to take breaks, especially physical exercise breaks, but make sure not to take them every 5 minutes. Even if you have just 30 minutes a day to read, take them, use them, cherish them. There will be periods in your life that you won't even have those 30 minutes. But there will be days, maybe weeks or even months that you will have at least 2 hours a day to read. 100 books a year means roughly 8 books a month, 2 books a week, meaning you have 336 hours to read 2 books, which is totally realistic. So take courage. Reading is not supposed to be scary. It's supposed to be fun and enlightening. And here comes my last tip. Take up challenges. Now, I officially challenge you guys and myself to read 100 books this year, or maybe even more, who knows? I challenge myself not only to read them, but also take notes and make video reviews of the ones that were really worth my time. And I would love to hear what books are you reading, if you're enjoying them, and if you decided to take up this challenge, why not? I also challenge myself to read more contemporary literature. Classics are great and they're my comfort zone, and we should always revisit them. But there's so many splendid books coming out every year that I don't want to miss out on contemporary literature. My husband gave me this beautiful Nook book for Christmas, and I've never used electronics to read books before. Articles, essays, scripts, yes, but not books. So I'm going to get used to it. Some people swear that electronic books increase their reading speed, and they actually end up reading more because they can so effortlessly get any book they want. I'll try this and let you know how it goes, But it definitely saves time. I mean, you can get any book you want at any time without ordering it on Amazon or going to the library. The library thing doesn't work during the pandemic anyways. There are many things that will be very different for me this year, with a newborn baby coming soon and film school starting in September. But I will try to adjust to the circumstances without neglecting any of my duties or priorities. I will probably rely much more on the services of the audiobooks this year. I will most likely read less daily, but I will try to read at least 30 minutes or an hour every day. I will set my daily goals and will do my best to follow them. Even if this time we just get to 70 or 50 or even 30 books, please don't get discouraged. No risk, no crown. There are not so many people who read even 30 books a year, believe me. So please do set the bar high. The higher it is, the more you will accomplish, even if you don't reach your exact goal. Or maybe you will, and then you will share your experience with us. If you didn't have the habit of reading since childhood, it is never too late to start. All things are difficult before they're easy. In less than a year, you'll see the difference in the way you live your life, the way you act, the way you think, the way you communicate with other people. Your study or work performance will improve. Your choices in life will become more sophisticated, more rational, or irrational, depending on what you want. Anyways, the results are guaranteed. It's 100% satisfaction guarantee from an avid reader. So let's get cozy and immerse ourselves into that one book on your shelf that you wanted to read for so long. Do it right now. And leave me in the comments down below what you think about this 100 books a year challenge, if you're taking it up or why not. Thank you so much for your time. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you're on the same page. And sweet readings to you all!